Hey everyone. It's Aaron and Asia back on the mics this week as we're going solo again. So we've taken a little hiatus here from the guests, but um yeah, we're going to talk about something today that actually we've touched on briefly in the past, but it's something that both Asia and I have become pretty passionate about. Um and so I'll start it off with a little bit of a story here that we have encountered over the last few days. We went to one of my friend's weddings, or his wedding, not weddings. He only had one
It was
wedding.
one wedding. Yep.
So on Saturday, we were at his wedding, and I've known him. We've been friends since like literally grade one, I think, is when we first started hanging out. So it's been, I don't know what that is. That must be like almost 30 years. Long time. So we were at his wedding, and there's quite a few people there from high school when we went to high school here in Chilliwack, and so we were mingling around, talking to people, saying hi, having a drink, doing lots of fun stuff. And one of the things that just kind of keeps popping up to me is I have these, ideas of who people are from 15 years ago. Some of the people there I haven't seen for 15 years, like um, his sister, for example. I hadn't seen her in 15 years.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I had noticed was just how different people are after, you don't see somebody for 15 years. That's a long time. And I get it that, at a high school period of time to 35 is a big change anyways, but people change, can change pretty dramatically from the time you saw them at 17 or 18 or whatever it was to the time maybe you see them again at 34. So it's an interesting thing. It's actually something I think, I think quite about a lot about it. It's just like, oh, I wonder what that person's like now or where they are. I haven't seen them for 10 or 15 years or maybe longer. I think, yeah, it'd be interesting just to know, who they've become or what it is they do now, or maybe they live somewhere totally different. So what Asia and I kind of wanted to talk about was just people are going to change anyways. You're going to change over time, whether you like it or not. And you can either be like, you can defer that process just to human nature and let human nature or society push you around to become something that you wake up one day and be like, hey, how did I get here? Or, you can participate in that process and actually try to design who it is you want to become. So having a vision, which is something Asia and I talk probably pretty frequently, I would say, about in many different areas, not just in this case, we're talking about a person changing over time. We talk about it in our marriage, how we want to do with our kids, a vision with our children, um, goals we have down the road, who we want to become over time, all kinds of things. So a vision is something that's very critical to getting what you want out of life, or in this case, what you want out of yourself. Who you want to become. So one of the key components in there is, are you involved in that process or are you not involved in that process and things are just happening to you, versus actively pursuing the change that it is. What's your initial thoughts on that, Asia?
Well, I think that everybody wants to have the the element of designing their life. Like, I think you might not think about it when you're younger, but I think we all have this some sort of element of control of just being like, these are the things that I see. And some of it too comes from, ideas that were maybe portrayed to us about who we are and what we could become and these sorts of things. And having more of like a vague understanding of the availability of different career paths or education or whatever, right? So like when you first get started, I think you have this idea of like, this is what I want to do and this is what I want to pursue. And I feel like we all kind of want to be in the driver's seat of our lives, But a lot of times, I think when you're younger and like even taking back to like those high school days, like a lot of these people we haven't seen in a long time. And so you have this perception of like who they were back then
Totally.
and thinking of like that there's still that same person even now. And then when you go to like a meeting, for example, like it honestly was like a weird sort of like high school reunion almost at this wedding. There were so many people there that we haven't seen for a while. And you go and you're like, wait, they're so different, or they have like, they've evolved so much in that time. And it's like, of course they have. Like you have as well. But when you're so
Yeah.
kind of, what's the word, like distant from it, you don't realize it. So it was kind of a cool thing. But going back to like designing your life, I feel like we all kind of have that desire to do that. But I don't think it's until you get into your later years in life that you kind of unwind, like, were those desires actually mine? Like, so much of what we do growing up and like the paths that we follow, I feel like are placed on us from other people and other people's perceptions and ideals and things we learned in school and things that we were like, oh, this is the smart thing to do because my school counselor told me this was the smart thing to do, right? It's not necessarily our ideas. And then you end up in these positions where you're like, I somehow went down this path that like other people recommended for me and not necessarily myself. And so I feel like even though you were making active choices toward that, it might not have been the design, quote unquote, that you were hoping to get out of it in the end. Or maybe you've changed and now your desire of what you wanted doesn't align with the path that you chose. And so I think there's so many areas in life to pivot. But I feel like for myself personally, like I wasn't really in a place where until like becoming a parent and like really leaning into like how do I want my life to look? What do I want it to look like? Where do I want it to go? Like until I actually asked myself those questions, I just kind of was like on the hamster wheel, like following the path. Like I had chose to do a nursing degree. And so I was just like following the path of that, like getting into nursing, getting a job, working that job. Like, oh, there's an opportunity for me to become an emergency nurse. Okay, let's do that. Like continuing to do the things that were kind of protected to me. And then when I really took a deep dive as to my priorities in life, and this is like something we'll talk about, my priorities, my values, like what did I see for my vision? There were so many things about that career path that didn't align with any of those things. And so I think like you can get on this cycle of life where you're like, I'm I'm in the driver's seat and like I'm doing the things and I'm pursuing something, but the things I'm pursuing don't actually align with where I want to go, you know?
Yeah, yeah, that would be a missing sort of vision,
That would
uh,
be the missing vision piece. And I
or
also think too that
or
so
a
many of
vision
us,
that's not really taking you to where you want to go,
yeah, but so
taking you
many of us,
somewhere.
like I work with people primarily, and I have this conversation with people a lot. And so many times people are like, but I did this. Like I went to school. I did this thing. I can't just walk away from it. And I mean,
Okay.
I think the complete opposite. I'm just like, of course you can do that. Like if it is so against where you want your life to be or look or how you want to feel in your life, you absolutely can change your mind. You can walk away. You can decide right now that something is not meant for you and you can do something about it. And I think it's, it's way easier said than done. I'm not going to sit here and be like, it's just easy. You just decide tomorrow to quit your job and you move on. Like it doesn't work like that. But like you absolutely can change your mind and pursue something different for the life that you want.
So I think there has to be, it doesn't have to be, but I think there usually is some sort of catalyst to spark this sort of like desire to change yourself in a way that's guided by yourself,
I think so too.
as like, because for both of us it was that way, like I've said it before, but I played competitive golf, and to be better at competitive golf there's lots of things that I pursued and tried to learn about, and Um, yeah, there's lots of things that I did to try to change myself in subtle ways to make me a better golfer.
Mhm.
And that was, I mean, I kind of was doing that in like high school a little bit, and then it kind of got like, I don't know, there's like gasoline poured on the fire when I went away to do my master's degree. Because the guy that I lived with, who we have an episode with, Mark Guadagnoli, you should listen to that one for sure. You know, he kind of inspired me to do more of that stuff. And for you, I would say, yeah, being a parent, but I would say more so pursuing business things forced you to change. You had to change. If you were going to be successful at it, you had to change yourself. So it wasn't like for either of us, and I think it's the same with a lot of other people. You know, I know a lot of other people too that are forced to change in positive ways in order to do what it is they want to do better, whether
Mhm.
that's a parent or a business opportunity or whatever it is,
Mhm.
a physique, like health, any of it. Um, so I think there's like a catalyst for it that kind of sparks you to be like, hey, you know, I should spend some time doing these things to try and better myself in just little areas at a time and try and do it over a prolonged period of time.
Mhm.
So I think there's like a catalyst. But one of the key components of this whole thing to me is this idea of a vision. Like somebody can want to pursue changing themselves and trying to better themselves. And there's lots of ways to better yourself. But what are you bettering yourself for? You know, are
Mhm.
you bettering yourself to become a better athlete? Are you bettering yourself to become a better marriage partner? Are you bettering yourself to become a better employee? You know, mother, father? Like, what is it that you're, and I think this is where the vision piece comes in. Like, what are the most important things to me that would give me the life that I'm looking for, you
Mhm.
know? And I think yeah, I just mentioned the episode with Mark. Mark is a huge proponent of having a set of values, like something that you've literally written down on a piece of paper, you've thought about for a long time. What are the things that are super important to me? I just mentioned a few, you know, like some of them might be about being healthy. Some of them might be around being a good father or you know, working hard or being a dedicated person or whatever it is, whatever those important things to you are written down on a piece of paper. And I think like those components drive into seeing like this vision of where do I want to go? Because I think, like you were saying, there's a lot of people who get, yeah, you might work really hard, you might get some opportunities that come your way, and 10 years goes by, and you're like, wait, you know, I've been a nurse for 10 years and I've worked hard and I thought this was going to be the greatest thing ever, and I don't like it,
Mhm.
you know, like, and at the time, you probably, for you personally, you probably never once thought about like, what are the things that I value? Where do I want my life to go? What do I want it to look like?
Mhm.
Probably never once thought of that at that time when you were
No.
going to school to do it.
No.
And then you get there 10 years later and you're like, hold on a sec, like, you know, what's going on here? Like,
Yeah. I also think too, like it is a fair thing to say that like your values and your priorities are going to change. Like when I was going to nursing school and pursuing that, and this could be applicable to so many people, I'm sure they realize this as well. And, when I was doing that at the time, it had a bunch of positives for me because I was like, I don't want to go to school and get an education where I then have to go to school to get more education to get a job. So I was like, it was attractive to me to go get a degree that I can walk out of university with a job. And then there's other elements as well, but it's so interesting because so many times throughout my nursing degree, throughout the years that I worked before I ever became a parent, so many people talked about the beauty of being a healthcare worker while having a family. So many of them, they were like, oh, it's awesome. Like you can work nights and then you can be home all day with your kids. And there's the flexibility and there's this, that, and the other thing. And you can swap shifts or you could be casual or all of this. And so when I got to that place in my life and was a parent, I was like, what are you guys talking about? Like to me, it was so opposite of the family values that I really wanted to have. It felt like it was pulling me away from my family. Like it didn't do what everyone had said. And so I think it was like in those moments where I had realized like, wait a second, this is not actually what I came into this for. Like I wanted it for certain elements. And yes, okay, we get paid a decent wage. And there was like some pros to that. I worked with awesome people, like the environment that I worked in, I actually didn't mind. Um, so there was some pros to it. But when I was like, I'm being pulled away from like my little babies and I'm sleepless and I'm irritable. And like there was things about that that I was like, I don't like this version of me. And I felt like part of that version of me was created because of the work environment that I was in and the hours and that sort of thing. So every single person's values and stuff are going to change over time. And for some people, they make that career work for them, and that's fantastic. But for me, I really had to be like, okay, what is my value here? And does this align with that? And at the end of the day, for the both of us, like we both came to the conclusion that like something kind of needed to shift. And so I think for a lot of people, they do what they are doing because they've been doing it. And that's it. Like there's other things that they're like, yeah, like if I could do something else, I would. If I could have more flexibility, I would, but I can't with my current job. And it really gets you to think. So like for anyone who's listening to this is not a dig at you and like what you've created for yourself up until this point, but it is almost like a reflection point of being like, hey, why don't you take a step back for a sec and really evaluate like what are your values? What are the things that are most important to you? Are you getting them in your current life? And if you're not, like, where can you make adjustments? Because that's when you start to become empowered by your decisions and your decisions become easier because you're like, every decision I'm making now is going towards these values that I have written out, have brought to my attention, and very well aware of. And you start to just make decisions based off of that. And I
Yeah,
personally think
and you have a like this you have a vision of what you actually want.
you know where you're going. And I personally believe for myself, and I know for you too, we've had lots of conversations about this just on a personal level, but it's like when you get very clear on your values and what they are, your decision making becomes so simple. Like you're not at a crossroads a lot of the time, right? Um, and I think even Ron in one of our previous episodes was talking a bit about, I think it was his sister-in-law who was working a job
Yeah.
as like a physio, right? And she was offered this position, a quite significant promotion with quite significant increase, but the job required her to travel a lot more and be away from her family. And she had to go like, wait, this is not like, yes, the notoriety that might come from this job position would be very cool. And I would be really proud of myself for that. But there's also a cost to it. And that cost just in the end for her wasn't worth it. And she never ended up taking that job. And so it comes down to really your massive set of values and it helps you guide your decision making because then it's like it's not all about money, it's not all about the attention and stuff that you're going to get from things. It's like there's so many other factors to consider and what's going to be best for you. So then you become part of you're in the driver's seat of your life and you're designing it based off of what's most important instead of just coasting and drifting along, right? So it makes a big difference to be aware of what your big values are.
Yeah, I'm a huge believer in this concept, but like I believe that being able to think far out down the road is like one of the most impactful things you could do for your entire life because it takes like, and this applies to 1,000 different areas, but even something as simple as taking a job. If you think about it just from like, I'm going to meet with somebody and they're going to tell me about a job. Well, you're only meeting with these people because it's better than the one you probably have right now.
Right.
And better probably just means that they're going to pay you more. Or maybe it's doing something maybe you like a bit more. But any of that conversation in that meeting is going to be geared around like right here, right now stuff. It's not, it's not geared around like, what do I see myself for myself like 10 years from now? And does this fit? There's a very clear uh, hierarchy of decision making there. Like one is like what do I want 10 years from now? Is this job going to fit? The other one is like, he's going to pay me or they're going to pay me $10,000 more this year. That works for me. I'll fit it into my set of values rather than starting from the other way. So I'm a huge believer in that. But another concept with, like changing over time is that it doesn't happen in like a split second. It's something that takes, a ton of different decisions over a prolonged period of time to have an effect. Like think about if you are going to work out. You've never worked out in your life and you want to work out and change your body to look the way that you want it to look. It'd be unreasonable to expect that you're going to go to the gym 11 times for an hour and a half each or something and look really any different. That's just not how it works. You got to do it for like 4 years, consistently, 3 times a week, 4 times a week, whatever you might be doing. And then you should expect, like I'm going to expect to see some change. I think it's the same with, we'll just call this, I don't know, personal growth, right? Or changing yourself for the better over time. Like it's a lot of little decisions that get made over a prolonged period of time with probably very little uh like obvious change that you're going to see. And then one day after 4 years, you might go, "Hey, I can actually see that I responded differently in this situation where I normally would have freaked out or whatever it might be, right?" Um so it's a series of really small decisions over a really long period of time that lead to like a change that's lasting in who you are or who you're going to become. So some of the things, like what do you think are some of the things that contribute to someone changing over time? Like obviously someone's habits, what habits you set up for yourself is going to contribute to you changing over time. What do you think of maybe some other ones?
I also think another really big one is the people that you surround yourself with. Like if, we've all heard like if you're surrounded by four millionaires, you'll be the fifth, or if you're surrounded by four unhealthy people, you'll be the fifth. Like you can pick whatever path that is. But I think your circle and who you choose to surround yourself with is a massive contributor to the life and where you kind of end up because you adapt those people's mindsets, you adapt their work habits a lot of the time, you'll adapt um whether they're like a positive or a negative thinker, like there's so many different attributes that we adapt to around different people. So I do believe like your circle really impacts. And this is nothing to say like, a lot of people will still have like the same friends that they've had from high school. And I'm not necessarily saying that that's a bad thing, but I think it closes you off to the potential of what is out there. And so I think like a big asset in your life is to get out and meet new people and meet people who do different things than you and who might view the world differently than you because you have if you're open minded, you might end up on the other side with something different than what you'd ever imagined because you didn't know that those mindsets or thought processes even existed. So I think that your circle for sure is a huge contribution to what you where you kind of end up in life.
Yeah, another one that I mean, it was really obvious to us when we were away is just the environment that you put yourself
Oh
in.
yeah.
Obviously, what you're talking about is part of what I'm mentioning now. I'm talking about like change in physical location, like getting up and moving to a new city, one that you've, set out as somewhere that can take you to this place that you want to be as a person. Maybe it's a career, maybe whatever it might be.
Uh-huh.
You've moved there for a reason. And
Yeah.
that was something that was really obvious to us. If we want to change our family dynamic or whatever it is, we can pack our stuff up from Chilliwack and move to somewhere else that we think fits better with that. And when you do that, obviously one of the things that comes along with that is having new groups of people to be around, which is what you were just saying, right?
Yeah.
Finding people that can help you, push you, you know, help you grow into a better version of who you are. And, for you, that's been people in your business that you're in.
Uh-huh.
They've pushed you and inspired you and, said to you, if you're going to be successful, you kind of got to work on these things and change some
Mhm.
of them.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so those are some of the things. Obviously, a person's habits are hugely influential in, how you shape yourself over time.
Mhm.
Um,
Even too, like just to snowball off of that and like habits and changing your environment and all of it. Like one of the things, and this could be applied in so many different ways, but one of the things that I found really interesting about traveling and habits is that when you are out of your environment, you're out of your regular day to day, like take the kids here and we do this on Tuesdays, and like you're out of that, it's so easy to then go like, how do I actually want my days to look? What do I want them
mhm.
to look like? What types
You
of
can just
food do I want to
redesign a
buy?
blank slate.
But it even went down as much as like, what sorts of foods do we want to consume? Like there's different food here. So like what sort of food do we want to spend our money on while we're here? Do we want to eat junk or do we want to like eat whole foods? Like even I was telling Aaron this not too long ago, but like I felt like I was almost the healthiest I'd been in a very long time post traveling because we had gyms in all of our apartment buildings. So we would like prioritize going to the gym. We walked so much as a family, just to and from different places. We were only spending money for the most part on food that like was actually good for us. And especially like Costa Rica, like lots of fresh fruits, vegetables, like meat. That was pretty much it. Like that was our diet for 3 months. Like you can design it because you're like, I have a blank slate here. And so for, someone who might not be as easy to just like leave or move to a different city or whatever, but like just allowing yourself to be like, I can totally disrupt my pattern of habits right now. At any point, I can just be like, I'm disrupting this. The way things are going for me is not working and I'm switching it up. And that was a really big eye opener because it was funny how easy it was to come home and just like
Yeah, slip
after a
straight back.
couple of weeks just slide
Yeah.
right back into like the way things were. And like this is a dramatic concept on the story, but like it's the same reason why people like get out of rehab and then they tell you you need to switch your whole friend group and you can't go back to those people and you can't go back to that house and you shouldn't be in this. It's the same thing, but you can apply it to like anything in your life. And that was something that traveling really taught me is like at any point you can just disrupt this system of habits and you can just recreate them from a blank slate.
Yeah, 100%. Like when
Uh-huh.
we were away, you almost had to design new habits.
Yeah.
Like there are no habits. It's a
Uh-huh.
completely new area. What are your habits going to be?
Yeah.
Um, example, we're pretty, I would say, hardcore on this. Like, um, if something's not working for us, we're like very quick to solve the problem. We don't sort of let it linger.
We
And
don't
then
let a lot of things linger.
an issue we've had over the last, I don't know, probably 2, 3 months is we live just in the mountain from Chilliwack, so we're 25 minutes to the town, like into the city, and that's where the gym is. It's 25 minutes, and so it was very challenging. I mean, we're spending almost 25, 30 minutes a trip to and from the gym. So you're like an hour of driving and then you're an hour at the gym and you're rush back home. Like it's just 2 hours a day. So if both people went to the gym on different times, we got two kids at home,
Yeah.
that's 4 hours of the day. Like it was a lot. And so we were like, no one's getting to the gym and doing the things we need. And it's important to us. It's very important. If you follow us, you probably are aware that we care deeply about our health and fitness and foods we eat and stuff like that. So we said, you know what? We gotta put a gym in our garage, and we went and
And it
spent
was
a
a
couple
very
thousand
quick
bucks, and
Yeah.
yeah, it was like, hey, this isn't working.
Yeah.
Going to the gym's just flat out not working, and
Yeah.
we're not working out, which affects us as people.
Mhm.
And so we went and spent a few $1,000, got some gym equipment, some rubber mats, threw them down in the garage,
Within
and
like
now we have
24 hours of this
dumbbells and a bench
conversation.
and yeah, barbells and plates and a squat rack. So, and it's a game changer for a couple $1,000. And I'm not trying to make it sound like a couple $1,000 is nothing, but I'm just saying, we were able to solve a problem pretty easily from
Uh-huh.
something that we value deeply. So it was a very good use of money to us because it's something we value a lot.
Mhm.
Um, so that's just an example of something for us in our personal life that is a value for us, and we had a problem with it, and we used some resources that we had to solve that problem for us, and we would do it again.
Oh yeah. I was even saying I'm like I'm so like I don't know why we didn't do it sooner and why I didn't like why it took us this long, but honestly it's been great. So it's the best thing.
Yeah, it is. It's a good thing. We had a gym before too, before we lived in this home. We had a really nice setup in our garage. Um, so when we sold that house, they wanted the gym equipment.
Mhm.
It went with the house, so we
Yeah,
were
it did.
without our own little gym and for a while. So it's nice to have it back. It's very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've worked out every single day we've had it. So, and before that, I would have been lucky to get to the gym. It was down to like maybe twice a week.
Yeah, maybe.
So,
It was
which
tough.
wasn't working for me.
No.
Cool. So, I think that's probably good.
Mhm.
The biggest takeaway for here, I would say for everybody is that whether you like it or not, you're going to change over time. Uh, you can sort of allow external forces and things to change you in ways that maybe you do or do not want, or you can take an active role in designing who it is that you want to become and thinking deeply about that and implementing things that help you over time become who it is you want to become. And everybody's a little different, so everyone's got to sit down and think about what are the things that really matter to them personally,
Mhm.
professionally, as a family, and then you got to make decisions, on who you are right now and who you would like to become and how to, how am I going to fill that gap that's there?
Yeah.
And we talked about this with Ron actually, and a really, really good way to understand yourself is some of these personality tests. So if you want to know about those, we mentioned a couple in that episode, but go to the episode with Ron Reich, and there's a couple personality tests in there that you can do. It'll give you a great idea if you're not super aware of who you are and what you like and how you function and do well and don't do well. Go spend a couple hours doing one of those, and it will give you a really good idea. And you'll probably go, "Oh yeah, I could see that. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, yeah." And it will probably be very accurate. And that'll give you a place to start, you know, bettering yourself from, whatever that means. Maybe you're
Mhm.
already really good and you're just looking to change one thing in one area and be better at that. Or maybe you have never thought about these concepts before and are like, this would be interesting. I think this would be a fun challenge for myself over the next till the day I die.
Mhm.
So that's what we got this week. An interesting little observation from the wedding turned into a conversation about vision and who it is people want to become, or having just a general plan over time of how to change your life or your family's life or your professional life or whatever it might be. So to us, a vision and a set of values is extremely, extremely important in being successful
Mhm.
in that venture.
Yeah.
So go do a personality test and sit down and think about what it is you value and maybe how you can better yourself a little bit over the next 5 or 10 years. That's our challenge for you.
Even if you want to be short term, like do something by the end of the year. If you
Yeah, you got
can't
to
do
do
big,
stuff.
big, bold vision, like think about
No,
by the end of the year, what do you want
you
life to look like?
you got
What
to
little
start
changes
by just
can you make?
having these conversations with yourself. That's where you
Yeah,
start,
yeah,
and you'll start rolling the snowball downhill at that point, and it'll just go from there.
for
So
sure.
that's what you got to do. Alrighty,
Hope this was
we'll talk to
helpful.
you later.
Bye.